Welcome back to the channel. Aaron here from the Bitcoin Bros, and in today's video we'll be going over some strategy updates. Also going to be getting into Metaplanet and the blockchain group in today's video. You guys have been asking us to cover these a little bit more. It's going to be going over, giving a high level view of what's been going on with those two companies. But you can see here from saylor, it says orange is my preferred color. So this goes to show that saylor may be selling some STRF ATM, some STRK ATM to buy Bitcoin, and I'm sure they're using the MSTR ATM to also buy BTC here. So we'll see that announcement tomorrow of how much Bitcoin strategy has purchased over the last week. So really good to see there. Then getting into Metaplanet here. So Metaplanet is in Japan. They are the biggest Asian Bitcoin Treasury company. They use moving strike warrants to raise capital daily with minimal dilution. And this is very similar to Strategy's ATM. They're not one for one. We can go deeper into that in a different video, but they are similar, raising fiat to buy BTC. And their mission is to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible, very similar to Strategy, following the Strategy playbook. They currently hold around 7,800 Bitcoin with around a $3 billion market cap. Their mNAV is around 5 right now. They have a high BTC yield, over 2.9x in just under the past 5 months, and it's tax efficient exposure for investors. Current Bitcoin gains are taxed as miscellaneous income in Japan. That could go as high as 55% when you invest in something like Metaplanet. That goes down to around 20% in capital gains. So a lot of investors in Japan that like Bitcoin are probably going to be holding Metaplanet instead because of the tax efficiency there. And you can see Metaplanet's mNAV versus the MSTR mNAV a lot higher, a lot more volatile. You can see back here in September of 2024, it was sitting at a 10 mNAV before it went all the way down to 2, back up to 8, back down to 2, and we're currently sitting at around 5 to 6 at the time of this recording. So you can see how the differencing in mNAV changes for Metaplanet versus MSTR. Metaplanet, a lot smaller company, so the mNAV has been a lot more volatile and has been a lot higher than Strategies as well. And Metaplanet's Bitcoin per share doubling rate, they've been able to double their Bitcoin per share every 92 days, and they've been able to keep that as they've been holding more Bitcoin, which is really impressive. As you can see here, historical days of double BTC per share has been around 89 days. Obviously, as they get more BTC, this is definitely going to become a lot longer, but right now they're still accumulating Bitcoin at a very impressive rate. This is why globally Metaplanet was the best performing stock in 2024 and continues to be one of the best performing stocks over the past year to date. They have been doing very well, and it's because they've been able to accumulate so much Bitcoin in such a short amount of time. And because they have performed so well, if you look back in December of 2023, they only had around 10,000 shareholders. March of 2025, they had 64,000 shareholders. So it's catching on. The performance is taking people by surprise. People are starting to dive in, and they're realizing that Metaplanet is going to continue to accumulate Bitcoin, which is going to help them continue to perform very well. And you can see with the increase in shareholders, this has helped them perform even better. So you can see they 6x in just under a year and a half, which is crazy to see there. So Metaplanet looks very similar to Strategy. In my opinion, they have been the closest company in the world that has been as consistent as Strategy in buying Bitcoin. So that's why they have performed so well. Their shareholders are getting more confidence in them as they continue to accumulate more Bitcoin at a very fast pace. And I think Metaplanet will continue to do well as long as Bitcoin does well. And nothing is financial advice in these videos. I'm not saying Metaplanet is going to be doing it 100x over the next year. I'm just saying this company, you should look at it. If you're a Strategy shareholder, if you like Bitcoin, Metaplanet is a Bitcoin proxy that could do well for years to come. Let's go ahead and take a look at the blockchain group. They are in Paris, France, and they are positioned as the leading Bitcoin proxy in the European market. They're the biggest company that has the most Bitcoin in Europe. They are backed by Adam Back, who is the CEO of Blockstream. He's been a key figure in the Bitcoin space for a very long time. And their mission is very similar to Saylor's mission: buy as much Bitcoin as possible. And they are also following the Bitcoin yield maximization strategy similar to Metaplanet, similar to Strategy. And they have a goal of holding 1% of the total Bitcoin supply by 2033. So this is really interesting. If they are able to achieve that goal by 2033, you can see that they would have a potential market cap of around $210 to $460 billion. The current market cap at around 680 million, I believe it's somewhere around there, maybe even lower than that. Check these numbers, guys. But that is a huge potential gain if they're able to get there by 2033. That's 8 years out, so you can see the massive gains that could come from this company. Tax advantage vehicle for French investors, offers a 12.5% capital gains tax versus 30% tax on direct BTC holdings in France. This is very similar to what we saw with Metaplanet in Japan, a better way to invest with better tax benefits there. And all these companies here, Strategy, Metaplanet, the blockchain group, they're raising capital, they're accumulating Bitcoin, they're holding the Bitcoin forever, they're not losing the Bitcoin, and they're not selling the Bitcoin. So all these companies are doing the same as Strategy. Strategy is the biggest in the US, Metaplanet is the biggest in Japan, and the blockchain group is the biggest in France and Europe. And then this chart here is really interesting to look at. It looks at when all these companies started their Bitcoin Treasury strategy. You can see here Metaplanet started theirs in April of 2024. Strategy started theirs in August of 2020. And the blockchain group started in November of 2024. So what's really interesting here is looking at the performance for 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months. They are very similar. Now, Metaplanet and the blockchain group had a better first month compared to Strategy because there's more hype. Strategy had already done this, and there's just been a lot of hype for these Bitcoin treasury companies. So the first month was really good for them. But if you look at the 3 month and the 6 month comparisons, they are very similar for all three companies. So going forward, can we see the same thing for the blockchain group? And can we see the same thing for Metaplanet going forward over 5 years? So if we see that, we're going to see some huge gains for the blockchain group and some huge gains for Metaplanet. Not financial advice. And then over the past 52 weeks, out of all European companies, the past year, the blockchain group has been the second best performing stock in all of Europe. This is very similar to what we saw with Metaplanet last year when people were comparing Metaplanet to the rest of the Asian companies. They were always number one. And then in the world, Metaplanet was number one, the best performing stock in the world. So it just goes to show you that the blockchain group can continue to perform very well compared to all these other European companies. And when this happens, Europeans, investors around the world are going to take note of the blockchain group and what they're doing, and they're going to want to invest because of the upside potential. And then you can see their Bitcoin holdings over time here. You can see when they started, they acquired 15 Bitcoin, then another 40 Bitcoin, and then they had a massive move up earlier in the year at around 620 Bitcoin, and then another huge accumulation at around 847 Bitcoin. So you can see they have been accumulating Bitcoin at a steady pace there. And they just announced a convertible bond issuance of around 63 million euros to pursue the Bitcoin Treasury strategy, bringing their potential holdings to around 1,437 Bitcoin. So that's just bringing that BTC yield per share up even more. Similar with Metaplanet, they just issued 21 million USD in 0% ordinary bonds to purchase additional BTC. So they're going to be buying some more Bitcoin as well. So these companies look very promising, and they are following the strategy playbook to a T, the best they can in their own markets. And there's a lot of other companies doing this, Semler Scientific. There's a lot of companies doing this in the United States. I'm just showing you guys too that we have been looking at, that we have personally invested in, not financial advice. These are two companies that we think have potential for the future. And we know Bitcoin is going to be volatile, which means strategy is going to be volatile. And the Metaplanet and the blockchain group are probably even going to be more volatile because they're smaller companies. That's not financial advice. And it's still very early days for both Metaplanet and the blockchain group. So anything could happen with these. And if Bitcoin does go into a bear market, These companies need to show that they can continuously raise money in a bear market like Strategy did to accumulate more Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin does go in a bear market, I would think that these companies are not going to perform that well. I think they're definitely going to underperform BTC if Bitcoin decides to shoot down 50%. I'm not saying that's happening. We are definitely bullish on Bitcoin until the end of the year. But we do view these companies as long-term hodls, holding them over the next 5 to 10 years. But also do not take your eyes off of the prize. Strategy could potentially be included in the S&P 500 over the next couple months, which will give them a huge inflow of money that they will then use to buy BTC, which could be very explosive for Bitcoin and for Strategy stock price. So don't take your eyes off Strategy, guys. This is a huge catalyst that's coming later this year. So that's all I have for today's video. I hope you found some value. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more. If you want deep dives in Metaplanet, Semler, Blockchain Group, any other Bitcoin company, comment below. We'll try to do more deep dives. We can go deeper into both of these companies, how they're accumulating Bitcoin, what their strategies are for the future. We can definitely dive deeper into that if you guys want us to. But my name is Aaron from the Bitcoin Bros. I appreciate you watching all the way to the end. I'm out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.